Hello, my name is Joanne Seward, and I'm the Technical Services Librarian at the Oak Creek Public Library. Thank you for viewing this first video in the series, Office for Beginners. Today's topic is Microsoft Word. Word processing is the composition of documents using a computer system to input, edit, store, and print documents using a computer. Microsoft Word allows users to develop a wide range of documents such as letters, memos, resumes, reports, etc. Unlike a typewriter, once you create a document on screen, you can edit the text, format words, insert sentences, move paragraphs, correct spelling mistakes, and adjust the margins. Microsoft Word is a powerful tool that allows users to create professional-looking documents quickly and easily. So the objectives, this is what we're going to focus on specifically in this video. We're going to learn basic navigation skills to effectively use the Microsoft Word program. We're going to create a simple document, edit the text, and check for spelling errors, format the document, and adjust the page layout. And then lastly, we'll talk about preview, print, save, and opening. All right, so the first thing that we need to do, obviously, is open Microsoft Word. So typically you can find that if you go to the Start menu here at the bottom left-hand corner and go to All Apps. Usually you can see it listed alphabetically in here. So for Word, we need to scroll down all the way to the W's, and here we go, Word, and we're using 2016. Just so you know, 2013 is very similar to this. 2019, the newest version, is also very similar to this. So it's only when you get to older versions like 2010 and older, then it starts kind of being different, significantly different. So just wanted to make you aware of that to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Word 2016 to open it. Okay, and here we are. So this is called the startup screen. So from the startup screen, there are three main things that you can do from this window. So on the left-hand side, we have the recent documents. So you can see that I've done a couple of recent documents in here. You can open other documents, so things that you already have worked on in the past and now want to work on again or print, etc. You can start totally from scratch. So this one right here that says blank document. So, totally from scratch. And then you can search for online templates. And we'll talk about online templates later on. In the publisher class. So for today, we're just going to start out with a blank document. So I'm going to click once on blank document to open that. And then this is called the editing view because this is where we can edit our actual piece of paper. So that makes sense. All right, so starting with, let's talk about the parts of the window because that's kind of an integral piece of this for Microsoft Office is getting a general understanding of the parts of the window. So the main piece that you're going to need to know is the ribbon. So the ribbon is this entire section here across the top. Okay? Those are kind of all of our functions typically are up here. Within the ribbon, we have tabs. So it starts with File, Home, Insert, Design, goes all the way over to View right here. Okay, so these are all tabs that kind of group similar things together. That's the general idea of them. Home is the one that it's called Home because it's the one that you're going to be using probably the most often. All right, so, and then within the tabs themselves, the options are split up into groups. So you can see this first little chunk right here, this is the first group, and the name of the group is right here at the bottom of the ribbon. So the very first group in Home is Clipboard. The next one is Font. The next one is Paragraph, Styles, and then the last one is Editing right here. So it's good to know this just because we'll point out later as we go through class, like, oh, you want to go to the font group in the Home tab, and you need to know what a tab is and what a group is in order to understand that. So the groups are another way to group all of the similar things together. So like with font, you can change the font, the size, you can change the color, you can make it bold, italics, underline, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Another thing to point out, you might see ruler/guidelines up here across the top or on the left. We're not seeing it right now, but if I go to View, I can click on this little, whoops, not grid lines, ruler. There we go. So if I click on ruler, now you can see that there's a ruler that's popped up. So this gives me an idea of where I am on the page. Okay, so you can kind of see that in relation to where the ruler is. There is also the last part of the window to kind of keep in mind is the status bar. So at the very bottom here, this entire section across the bottom, this gray bar, is considered the status bar. So the status bar lets you know like how many pages and how many words you've typed. And then also over here on the right-hand side, the most important part is the zoom. So if I click on the plus sign, it zooms the page in, so it makes it bigger. Zoom, zoom, there we go, okay? So zoom, just so you know though, doesn't affect printing at all. It's only how you're viewing it on the screen at that exact moment. So I can click on the minus sign to zoom out and click on the plus sign to zoom back in, okay? All right, so let's talk about some kind of probably basics, but it's kind of worth covering just in case. So talking about cursors and keys. So the first thing is in Microsoft Word, you're going to see three kind of main types of cursors. So the first one you're going to see is this white arrow. So you can see the white arrows on File, Home, Insert, etc. This is kind of just letting you know where you are so that you can click on something. That's basically really all that it does. We have the I-beam, so you can see if I move my cursor down here that it's turned into a capital I. That capital I lets me know that if I click there, I could start typing, okay? And then lastly, the last cursor you're going to see is the flashing cursor. Over here on the top left-hand corner, you can see it's flashing right there. The flashing cursor is important because wherever that flashing cursor is, whenever you insert something, so text, a picture, a table, a graph, etc., it's going to go wherever your flashing cursor is. So it's good to kind of have a general idea of where this is so that you're not completely lost. Okay, so let's talk about some keys on the keyboard. So you want to look down at the very bottom left-hand corner of your keyboard. The first keys that we're going to talk about are Control and Alt. So if you look at the very, very bottom left corner, you should see CTRL and ALT. And then on the right-hand side of the space bar, you should see another Alt and another Control. You can use either one, they work exactly the same. So these keys are considered combination keys or shortcut keys because when you use them with other keys, it makes different commands happen. So for example, if I do Control P right now, oops, let me click on Word and do it again. I click on Control P. There we go. That's the keyboard print shortcut for printing, okay? So I didn't have to click on anything. I just did Control and the letter P. And then I'll use this back arrow to get back to it, okay? Control S is the shortcut for save, etc., etc., etc. So by themselves, Control and Alt do nothing. You could press them all day, nothing would happen. You have to use them in combination with other keys in order to make these commands happen. All right, the next one that we're going to talk about are the arrow keys. So if you look at the very bottom right-hand corner, or if you're using a laptop, it's on the bottom right-hand corner. If you're on a regular keyboard, so on a regular desktop PC, then they might be kind of over on the right-hand side up a little bit to the left of the number pad. So the arrow keys allow you to move up, down, left, or right by one kind of character or one line. So if we had multiple lines of text, if I press the down arrow, it would take me down to the next line below. If I press the up arrow, it would take me up a line. If I press the right arrow, it takes me my cursor over one to the right, so one character, so a letter, a number, punctuation, space, etc., to the right. And then if I use the left arrow key, it takes me to the left, okay? Pretty straightforward. So the next one we're going to talk about is the backspace key. So backspace deletes one character to the left of the cursor. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my name just to give you guys an example. Let me make this bigger so you can see it better. There we go. Okay, so you can see my flashing cursor right now is to the right of the letter E for Joanne. So if I hit backspace, it gets rid of the E. If I hit backspace again, it gets rid of the N, backspace again, N, backspace again, A, etc. Okay, so that's pretty standard. We're used to using backspace. So we usually we type something, we make a mistake, and we use backspace to get rid of it and retype it. So let's talk about, on the flip side, we have delete. A lot of people think that delete means that it deletes the entire word or the entire sentence. That's not technically true. If you have everything selected, so if I have all of this highlighted gray, yes, if I hit delete now, it'll get rid of everything. But if I hit backspace right now, it'll get rid of everything too, okay? But normally what actually the delete key does is it deletes one character to the right of where your cursor is. So you can see my cursor right now is to the right of the letter E again. So, and you can see there is nothing over here on the right-hand side. So if I hit delete, here I go, nothing happens. I could keep pressing delete. Nothing happens whatsoever because there's nothing on that right side of where the cursor is. So as Americans, 98% of the time, we're probably going to be using backspace because we type everything left to right. Other countries, it'll be the opposite because they do right to left. So they're going to be the ones who are using the delete key for the most part. So, all right, the caps lock key, let me get rid of these by hitting backspace. So caps lock is usually over on the left-hand side of your keyboard, kind of above the control and alt that we just pointed out. So typically you just press caps lock once and it'll capitalize every single letter that you type. Here we go. There it is, okay? So make sure if you're using caps lock to use it carefully. You don't want to be capital letters for every single thing that you type because then you will look like you are shouting and you can actually get in trouble in a workplace setting if you send emails like that. So you want to be cautious when you're using caps lock. The nice thing is with caps lock, usually there's a light either on the key itself or up above the right-hand side, up above those arrow keys, you might see a row of lights. Usually it's a letter, capital letter A. That's how you know that the caps lock is on. So to turn caps lock off, I just have to hit it again and then the light should go out. Okay. I'm going to use backspace and get rid of all of that again. All right, the enter key. So enter is how I move down to the next row. However, I don't want you to think that you have to press enter in order to move down to the next row. You only use enter if you're doing like a new paragraph. That's the best way to think of it. So if I press the enter key once, it takes me down a line, enter again, down a line, enter again, down a line, and so on and so forth. If I do backspace, it gets rid of those enters that I just did, okay? So that's typically what you use enter for. Sometimes you use it for commands as well. So if a screen, like something comes up on the screen that says like, do you want to continue? Yes, no. If you press enter, usually that's selecting whatever is highlighted. So if yes has a little box around it, then by pressing enter, you're saying yes, go, you know, go command. Okay. So the escape key, if you look at the very top left-hand corner of your keyboard, you should see escape or the ESC. Escape sounds like it's going to be super, super helpful, and unfortunately, it's just not. So typically, the main things that you're going to use it for are things that are not really Microsoft Word related or even Microsoft Office related, so to speak. The main thing that you're probably going to use it for is like YouTube and watching videos, because you'll watch a video and it'll be full screen, so it's taking up all of the edges of the screen. In order to get out of full screen, if you hit escape, that's how you get out of it. So the other thing that it really does, and it's not, like I said, it's not super helpful, but if I right click, oops, there we go. You can see that it brings up this menu right here of different choices, okay? If I hit escape, menu is gone. So that's really the most useful thing it does, is those two functions. All right, the function keys, talking about more keys that you probably won't really ever use. To the right of escape, starts with the first function key, which is F1, and then it goes all the way over to the right until it gets to F12. The reason that you're probably not going to use these keys all that often is because depending on what program you have open, they do different things. So I could be in Microsoft Word and press F5 and it opens a new document. I think that's what it does. I don't know 100% for sure. Or I could be in Internet Explorer and I press F5 and it refreshes the page. So that's why the shortcut keys are so kind of tricky. Sorry, not shortcut, those function keys are so tricky because they do different things depending on what program you have open. Typically, you'll use function keys when you're at work. So like, for example, for us, if we are checking out books to people, if we press F1, that'll take us to the checkout screen. So then we can check out the books to you guys and you can take them home. If we press F2, that's the check-in screen. So when you return something, that's how we check it in. So it's usually specific programs that you're using these function keys. The only one that's actually kind of universal and helpful is F1. F1 will typically open a help menu. There we go. There we go. See, Word 2016 help. And then you would type in, you know, whatever you're looking for. Bold, I don't know, something. How do you make the text bold? There you go. Okay. I'm going to close out of this by clicking on the X right there. So those are the function keys. The shift key, and there's two shift keys. If you look on the left-hand side underneath caps lock, and on the right-hand side underneath enter, there are shift on either side. And you can use either one. It just depends on how your hands are positioned, which one is easier to use at the moment. So shift is pretty straightforward. It capitalizes one letter at a time. So if you are doing your name and you don't want it to be in all caps, which most of the time you probably don't want, then you're going to hold down shift and press the first letter of your name and then let go of shift and keep on typing like that. Okay. So if you're only capitalizing one letter, you should be using shift. I've seen so many people who use caps lock instead. They'll hit caps lock and let go, type their letter, hit caps lock again to turn it off, and then continue typing. The odds of you forgetting that you have caps lock on and continuing typing are very high. So just use shift. The other thing that you use shift for is the row of numbers across the top. So 1, 2, 3, going over to 9, and then 0. You can see that there are symbols above those numbers. So above the number 1, there's an exclamation point. Above 2, there's the @ symbol, so on and so forth. So if you want to get those symbols, so for example, if I press the number 1, I get a 1. Makes sense, okay? If I hold down shift and press number 1, I will get an exclamation point. So shift is any key on the keyboard that has multiple symbols. You're using shift in order to get that upper symbol, okay? The space bar, pretty obvious. I just used it to put a space between the number 1 and my exclamation point. So you can use space. We'll move it one character, one space over to the right. So what you want to do in between words, typically. All right, and then the last one we're going to talk about is the tab key. So typically use tab in Word when you are starting your first paragraph. So I'm going to press enter. So you see it takes me down to the next line. So typically if I was going to type a whole paragraph right now, what I would do is tab. So let me hit tab right now. And you can see it indented it in. Technically, it says the same thing as if I hit the space bar 5 times. So it gives us 5 spaces and it moves it 1/2 inch over to the right. And you can see if you look at this ruler guide that I brought up, you can see that it's 1/2 inch in is where the line kind of, the flashing cursor lines up. And then I would start typing the rest of my paragraph at that point, okay? Alrighty, so those are kind of the important keys to take note of when you're talking about the keyboard and typing. So the next thing we're gonna talk about is how to navigate and how to select text. So let me go ahead and delete everything. I'm gonna use Backspace, get rid of everything, there we go. Okay, so it's important to know how to navigate around and how to select text when you are using Microsoft Word and really any program, really. So let's start out with how to navigate. So I'm going to type my name again, Joanne, there we go. So one way to navigate is actually, of course, to use your mouse. So I can take my mouse and I click anywhere in here that I want. So I can go between the O and the A, I can go between my N's, I can go at the end after the E, etc. Okay, so that's obviously one way that you can navigate is using your mouse, definitely. Another way you can navigate is using the arrow keys. So if I press the left arrow key, now you can see I'm on the left side of the E. If I press it again, I'm on the left side of that N, press it again, so on and so forth, okay? So the arrow keys are definitely one way that you can navigate left, right, up, and down. I can't go down right now because I don't only have one line of text. I can't go up right now because I also only have one line of text. But if you had a whole paragraph, then yes, you could definitely use up arrow, down arrow, right, left to navigate wherever you want to navigate. So those are kind of the two main ways that you would navigate are the mouse and then using the arrow keys on your keyboard. So let's talk about how to select text. So once again, the main way that you would use that you would select your text is to use your mouse. So the main way is using click, hold, and drag. So if I click and hold down on the left side of my mouse, so my pointer finger, and I drag it over to the left, for example, you can see all of this is highlighted gray. The reason that we want to select text, especially in Microsoft Office products, is if we decide that we need to make any formatting changes. So if I need to make this bold, if I want to change the color, if I want to make it italicized, etc. After you already type the text, you need to select it in order to make any changes. So, all right. You can also, you don't have to go left to right like that. I could go right to left. So I can go on the other side of the J, click and hold down and drag it to the right, and it selects it all the same. So whatever way works best for you. I'm a right to left gal. I don't know. It just depends on what you want to do. Okay. So I just clicked off to the side, just anywhere an empty space, or you can even click anywhere on this highlighted text, and then it won't, and then nothing will be highlighted or selected any further. Okay. So another way that you can do it is to double click. So if I go onto the letters of my name, so here is my I-beam cursor, and I double click, 1, 2. There we go. You can see that it very quickly selected my entire first name. So this is actually really handy, just a really quick way to easily select one word if you want to copy and paste that, or etc. So that's kind of a handy little thing. The other thing that you can do too is to triple click on a word. So I'm going to type in my last name just to give you an example. So if I double click on my first name again, 1, 2, you can see it only selects my first name. Okay, if I click off to the side, nothing is highlighted. If I double click on my last name, 1, 2, only my last name is selected. Let me click off to the side. Now let me show you triple click. So if I go on to either my first or last name, in this case, it doesn't matter whatsoever, and triple click, you gotta kind of think to yourself, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There we go. You can see both my first name and my last name are selected. So triple click is this really cool function that if you triple click on any word in the paragraph, the entire paragraph will become selected. So that is super, super handy rather than having to do click, hold, and drag it all the way down and all of that stuff, is to just triple click, 1, 2, 3, and it selects the entire paragraph. Okay. So in this case, because this is the only text that I have, that's considered the paragraph. All right. So let's move on. Now let's move on to actually creating a document. So with all of my text selected right here, I'm going to hit backspace and everything is gone. So I'm back to a blank screen. I'm going to zoom out a little bit by clicking on this minus sign just to make it a little bit smaller so that you can see it all. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to type in our text. In this case, I'm typing in a poem by the author Langston Hughes. So I'm going to start with the title. And with poems, typically they're shorter lines. So I'm going to press enter after each line. If I was doing an entire paragraph, however, I would not want to do this. You want to type the entire paragraph, then press enter, etc. Okay, so let me type in this poem. And I'm going to make some spelling mistakes because we're going to do spell check in a little bit. And if we don't have everything spelled correctly, that's no fun. Okay, there we go. So you can see the red squiggles and the blue squiggles, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So I'm going to press enter twice now so that I give myself a little extra space. So you can see there's kind of this empty line right here, and that's what I want, just because visually I wanted to give it a little bit of a break, basically. Oh, and I misspelled the title even. I said drama, it's dreams. There we go. Okay, back at it. So now what we're going to do is going to type in the author's last name, by Hughes. There we go. Okay. So let's talk about how to insert text. And I'm talking about inserting text after you've already typed something. So for example, with this by Hughes that we just typed in, let's say that we needed to type in his first name because we forgot to put it in there. So I'm going to actually use my left arrow key to get before the first H of Hughes. So I'm going to tap and get all the way over there. There we go. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is type in his first name and watch what happens to Hughes as I type this. And then we put a space. There we go. So you can see it just pushed over Hughes to make room for our text. If there ever is a time where you do something like this and instead of getting rid of or pushing over Hughes, if it starts eating it up instead, so it starts getting rid of the word Hughes, that's when you need to look into the overtype versus insert mode function. Basically what you need to do is press the insert key on your keyboard, which is usually at the top right-hand corner. So for whatever reason, the overtype mode got turned on versus the insert mode. It's a whole thing. But basically the thing is that you just need to know how to fix it, is pressing insert, and then when you continue typing, then it'll just keep pushing the words to the right and you'll be good to go from there. Okay. All right, so now that we have our poem typed, we're going to use spell check next. So in order to use spell check, we have to go to this review tab. So I'm going to click on review, and then it's in this proofing group right here. So we have the spelling and grammar. So before I talk about that, let's just bring up the squiggles again. So you can see the red squiggles means that something is spelled incorrectly. The blue squiggle, this can't right here, means that something is grammatically incorrect to some degree, okay? So let me go ahead and click on the spelling and grammar. And you can see it takes the very first word that was highlighted and puts it over here in the spelling review pane on the right-hand side. So it gives us suggestions in here for what we need. If you ever have something where the suggestion is not in here, then you're just gonna have to click over here in the actual text on the left-hand side and just use backspace to get rid of it and type in what you actually wanted, okay? So, which we might have to do later on. But if the word is in here that you want, then click on the word that you want. So in this case, we want dreams, and then click on change. So if I had spelled dreams the same way, D-R-E-M-S, then I could do change all and it would fix every time that I spelled that incorrectly that same way. However, if I spelled dreams like D-R-A-I-M-S, I don't know, it wouldn't correct that. So it has to be spelled exactly the same way for it in order to do this change, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and do change, and you can see now we have dreams in here and it's gotten rid of that red squiggle, okay? So basically you want to keep on going with the spell check until you get through all of your squiggled words. If there's ever something that you know is spelled correctly, like a lot of times it does people's names, because if you have something that's more complicated than John Smith, it might say that it is spelled incorrectly. So those are the times when you use ignore. If you typed your name multiple times in a document, you might want to do ignore all. Add is kind of a cool little feature. So once again, with your name, for example, with my maiden name, it was always giving me a red squiggle saying that it was spelled incorrectly. And so what I did on my home computer is I did add. So then that way, whenever I typed in my name, it never popped up with a squiggle, which was awesome. Okay, so add basically adds it to the dictionary of the program that you're in, essentially. Okay. But there's no point in doing that on like a public computer because it won't remember that kind of stuff. All right. So I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to take this one because I need a broken and do change. Okay, so for this one, that's grammatically spelled incorrectly, can't. And really, I meant to do cannot. So you can see that's not an option in here. So I have to click in between the N and the T over here and just type in the N-O, okay? And then I want to do resume, and then it picks it right back up after that, okay? We want fast. Once again, that is not in here. So we're gonna have to click in here, get rid of the letters we don't want, and type in the one we do. And click on resume, and barren, yes, we want that one, and change. So when it's all done, it's gonna say the spelling and grammar check is complete, and you click on OK. There are some things that it will do automatically, which is awesome. For example, if you type in the word the and you spell it incorrectly, it will change it. So let me just do it down here to give you an idea. So if I type in T-E-H, as soon as I press the space button, it's going to switch it. Get ready? Boom, switched. Okay. So, so for common misspellings like that, it will automatically correct it. It will capitalize the first letter in every sentence, which is what it did for this poem, which is what we wanted, so that works great. Also, if you misspell words, usually with double letters, a lot of times it'll fix those as well, okay? You can also use spell check within here without doing the spelling and grammar check. So let me just get rid of that to get my squiggle again. You can right click on a word that's misspelled and it gives you some suggestions right here. If it's not in here, then that might be when you have to go to the actual spelling and grammar check, or you have to just type in what you want it to be. Okay, so I'm going to click dreams and there you go. It's inserted in there. Okay. All right. So the last thing that we're going to do with our poem is some basic font formatting and editing. So I'm going to select the title of my poem. So I can do click, hold, and drag and select it. I could double click because it's one word. So 1, 2, boom, selected. So you can do it whatever way is most convenient for you. So from here, I'm going to go to the Home tab where a lot of our main functions are. And let's say I want to make this bold. I click on the B right here. And you can see dreams is bold. If you're not sure about it, if you look at how this B, you see how it has kind of this darker gray box around it. And if I click on it again, now it's not there. So whenever you see that where it's kind of highlighted it, that's when you know that it has been applied to the text that you have selected, just FYI, okay? All right, I'm gonna go down and select links and hues, but I don't want the word by. So I can't triple click because if I triple click, wait for a second, 1, 2, 3, it selects this entire line because that's the entire paragraph, so to speak, right there. But I don't want by, okay? So the problem is you can't do that. You have to do click, hold, and drag in this case. I'm gonna click and drag it. Oop, too far, move back, and let go. There we go, all right? So we're gonna make this italicized. So if I click on that capital I in the font group, and there we go, that's now italicized. If I click anywhere on the text, I'm gonna use a keyboard shortcut to select all of the text, which is Control and the letter A. So you wanna hold down the CTRL button and then tap the letter A and let go, and then let go of Control. That's kind of the best way to do those keyboard shortcuts. And Control A, the way that I remember it is all, select all. That's the easiest way to remember it. All right, so with everything selected now, we're gonna change the position of our text so that it's not left aligned like it is right now. We're gonna make it centered. So in the paragraph group right here, you can see these sets of dashed lines. This first one is left, and then we have centered right there. We also have right, and we also have justified. I'm not a big fan of justified, but if you feel like doing that, go for it. So I'm gonna do centered, and there we go. Now it's centered in the very middle. And then the last thing that we're gonna do is change the line and paragraph spacing. So in the paragraph group right here, here's the line and paragraph spacing button. If I click on that, I'm gonna change it to 2.0, so that gives us extra space. So you can see 1.0 and then 2.0. You see the difference? There it is, there it is. So basically it's allowing you more space for readability / if you need to make notes in here. So I'm gonna click anywhere on this text to deselect it. And I'm gonna zoom out a little bit using this minus sign down here. All right, and there is our finished poem, okay? All right, so let's talk about how to save. So typically when you are working on something, you wanna get in the habit of saving it fairly often, because you don't want to get, especially if you worked on something that is really tricky and then you have it the way that you know you want it, make sure that you save, because the worst thing is, oh, the power goes out and then you lost all of the work that you just did, or etc. So you want to be careful and make sure that you're saving fairly often, okay? So to save, we're going to go to File at the top left-hand corner right here, and we have Save and we have Save As. So this is the very first time that we're actually saving this document. Watch what happens when I click on Save. it automatically took me to save as. Typically, whenever you are saving something for the very first time, you want to do the save as, because save as allows you to choose what place that you're saving it to. So because we haven't saved this to any place yet, we have to tell it where we want to actually save it to, okay? So sometimes it'll show you ones that you've used, like different folders over here on the right-hand side. Otherwise, if it doesn't show you that, you want to click on this browse right here. And then it'll open this window from where you can choose where to save your files. If you just want to save it to your computer, typically for Microsoft Word, you're probably going to save it in the Documents folder because Word works in Documents, so it makes sense to save all of your documents there, right? In this case, we're going to save it to the flash drive, so that's the sent in USB. If I click on there, and you can see the file name is right here, Dreams. So with Microsoft Word, it always takes the first word or the first couple of words of the title, so whatever you typed in the actual document. If that doesn't work for you, if you want to change it, you can just click in there and you can use backspace and you can type in whatever you want it to be. Let's say I just wanted Dreams Poem. So it's a little bit more descriptive. I don't know, okay? And then the last thing that you have to do, so once we saved it to, once we chose the folder that we want to save it to and we gave it the correct name, all we have to do now is click on Save at the bottom, okay? And now it is saved to our flash drive. So the idea is we would work on this a little bit more and then we would save it again. When you save it again, you go to File and just do Save. And you see how it didn't ask me where I wanted to save it to? It's because we already chose where we wanted to save it to. Where it gets tricky is if you decide that you want to save it to a different location. So like, let's say I saved it to my flash drive and now I want to save it to the computer. So then if I want to save it to someplace else, that's when I need to choose Save As, because then I need to pick what other place I want to save it to, like the documents right here, Save. So now it's saved to the flash drive and to my computer, okay? So you just got to be aware of those different things. So save is saving it to the same place. Save as is if you want to save it to a different location or as a different name, for example. Okay. All right. So let's move on. That's saving a file. The next thing that we're going to talk about is doing some additional font formatting, just so that you get an idea. So I'm going to open a brand new document. So I'm going to go to the File tab up here and click on New over here on the left-hand side. And I'm going to start with a blank document again. So I'm just going to click once on blank document. And there we go, got a blank, totally blank document. So from here, I'm going to type in this one random sentence and just give me a second. Okay, so this little bit right here is auto-generated text. You will never in your entire life need to remember what this is. So just go ahead and remove it from your brain. All right, so I just pressed enter and it gave me all of these random generated text, basically, sort of random. So once again, you will never need to know this. I just didn't want to have to type the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, 12 times. All right, I'm going to click on the plus sign a little bit so it zooms it in just a scooch. Okay, so let's do some formatting changes to this very first paragraph. So I can do click, hold, and drag, or I can triple click in order to select this entire paragraph. So let's do click, hold, and drag. So I could start down here after the last dog and drag it up and over to the left, kind of diagonally, and let go, and then it selected that entire first paragraph. So let's do the first change that we're going to make is to change the font. The default font in Word is Calibri. It used to be Times New Roman, but now they've changed it to Calibri. I guess it's more modern looking. So we're going to scroll down. You can see we have all of these different choices and they're all alphabetical. There's a ton of different choices. And what's kind of nice is when you put your cursor on it, it shows you what it's going to look like. So I'm going to go all the way down to the W's because I want this one, this wide Latin, okay, just for giggles. All right. So now that is wide Latin and all the rest of the text that's not selected is still Calibri. Before we unselect this, we're going to make one more change. We want to change the color of the font. So in the font group, again, this A that has the red line is the font color. However, you don't want to click on this A because it'll just give you red, see? So if you want to do other colors besides red, you click on the down arrow, and then you can choose what color you want from here. So let's say I wanted it to be green. Boom. Okay. And then if I click off to the side or click anywhere on the text, now it's unselected. So let's make changes to the second paragraph. So let me click, hold, and drag, but I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to start at the beginning. So before the T of the, click, hold, and drag it over and down until the entire paragraph is selected, and then I let go. All right, so with this one, let's do underline. So in the font group, again, we have the U. Notice this little tiny down arrow. Whenever you see a down arrow, that means it's going to give you a menu of more options. Let's go ahead and click on there and check it out. We have all these different underline styles. And you can even change the underline color if you wanted to something fancy. So I'm just going to go with the double underline because I like how it looks, I guess. All right. And if I click off to the side, there we go. That one's done. Let's go to the third paragraph. Let's do triple click with this one. So if I triple click on any word in this paragraph, it's going to select the entire paragraph. So let me choose jumps right here. So 1, 2, 3, boom. The entire paragraph is selected. See how easy that is? Just, it's fantastic. So we're going to change the font size. The font size, the default is 11. Once again, in olden days, it used to be Times New Roman and 12 was the default size, but now it's 11. So we're going to change it to 28. So we want to click on this down arrow to the right of 11 and go down and click on 28. See the difference? Now you can actually probably see that way better. There it is. The last thing we're going to do is select this last paragraph. I'm just going to do click, hold, and drag. There it is. And I'm going to change the highlight color. So up here next to the font color, there is what looks kind of like a little Sharpie. So I'm going to click on the down arrow and I can choose what highlight color. Notice it gives you a preview of what it's going to look like right there. Let's say, let's do purple just for fun. So you can see it highlights the background of our actual text. So basically it's the same thing as if you took a highlighter and just went over it like an actual marker and just went over your text. Okay. So those are some additional font formatting things that you can do. Let's talk about undo and redo. So up here at the very top left-hand corner, all the way up, we have undo, which is the arrow pointing over to the left. And then we have this redo, or sometimes it's curved over into the circle, which is repeat, which we'll talk about in a bit. The one that you're going to use the most often is undo, because you will make a change like this and you'll be like, no, I didn't really want to have that happen. Or you'll have all of your text selected and you accidentally hit a key and now everything is gone. And before you freak out, just remember you can do undo. It's a lifesaver. So let's say the last action we did was highlighting this text. If I click on undo, now it's not highlighted anymore. See? If I click on undo again, got rid of this font size. If I click on undo again, gets rid of my underline, undo again, gets rid of the color, undo again, gets rid of the wide Latin font change, okay? So you can keep doing undo, and in this case, I could keep going until I'm all the way to a blank document, all the way back, okay? So you can do undo any action that you did. On the flip side of this, you can also do redo. So redo is if I went too far. So I went a little too far with undo. I didn't mean to go that far. So I'm going to click on redo. It'll bring back my various text. There we go. It'll bring back any formatting changes that I made one by one. There it is. Okay. This repeat is not super helpful. Really, the time that you probably might use it the most is if you copy and paste something and then you want another copy of it, you can just click on this repeat and it'll just copy another one, copy another one, copy another one. But overall, you're really not going to use repeats pretty much at all, honestly. So, all right. So speaking of copy and paste, let's talk about how to copy and paste something. So I'm going to open another new document. I could go to File and click on New again. Or the keyboard shortcut is Control and N for new. That's the best way to think of it. So I'm going to hold on Control and tap the letter N and let go. And there we go. We have a new document. So I'm going to do copy and paste first. So I'm going to go down to, what I want to do is go to my original document that I did, that Dreams poem. And we didn't close out of it. It's still open. So if we go down here to these W's, you can see that it brings up the different Word documents that I have open. So I'm going to click on this very first one because that's the poem. Okay. And let's say that I want to copy this poem over into that new document that I just made. So I'm going to do Control A to select all of the text. Remember, Control A, select all, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to use copy. So up here in the clipboard group of the Home tab, I'm going to click once on copy. It doesn't do anything because copy doesn't do anything to your original right here, okay? But what it did is basically make a photocopy of it essentially. So I'm going to go back down here and I want to go to my empty Word document and click on there. And now that I'm in here, I'm going to click on paste, this little clipboard symbol right above paste. And there it is. There is my dreams poem. I'm going to zoom out so you can see it fully, okay? If I go back to my original dreams poem, it's still all right there. So copy doesn't do anything at all to the original. It just allows you to make a duplicate of it to put it elsewhere. And I could put it in the same document. I could put it down here if I wanted, or you can put it into a new document, which is what we did right there. Okay. All right, on the flip side of that, we have cut and paste. So let me go to the Quick Brown Fox document right here. So I'm going to select the very last paragraph right here. This Quick Brown Fox jumps over the lazy dog, where I highlighted it purple. Up in the clipboard group again, this time I'm going to choose cut the little scissors. Notice that paragraph is completely gone. So cut, you got to think of it just like scissors, is just cutting it completely out of wherever it was. All right, so, but now that I cut it, I can actually paste it into another document or into the same document. But I'm going to go into that new document I did. And this is where you want to keep in mind where your flashing cursor is. Because if I have my flashing cursor in the middle of a sentence right here, it's going to put here, let me paste it. Boom, it's going to put the paragraph right in the middle of that sentence. Not what I want to do, right? So that's when you use undo. Click on this arrow at the top left corner, get rid of it. So I'm going to go back down here again and click, because I want my sentence to be at the very bottom of my piece of paper, for example. Now I can click on paste, and there it is. Okay. I can click on paste again, and it'll give me another copy. I can click on paste again, and it gives me another copy. Paste will remember whatever you cut or copied last. So you can do it multiple times if you wish. Okay. All right. So a lot of people have issues with cut, copy, and paste. But what I recommend is thinking about it in like kindergarten terms. So cut is your scissors. It will remove it from the actual document. So if you have a piece of paper and you take a scissors and cut it, you're cutting off, removing an entire piece of your paper. Paste is your glue, right? You use glue on whatever paper that you want and you put your cut piece onto there. And then copy is, I guess, like a photocopier. I don't know if that's very kindergarten-y, but you get the idea, okay? So that's cut, copy, and paste kind of in a nutshell. The more that you use it, the more familiar that you will get with it, I promise, okay? All right, so give me one moment and I'm gonna turn on the video again. Too high. All right, here I am. So let's talk about just a quick additional tips. One of the additional tips to keep in mind is deleting text. So you can delete text like using backspace or delete, as I mentioned, like backspace, one character to the left, delete one character to the right, or you can select an entire chunk of text and then use backspace or delete. So like these two last paragraphs that we pasted in here. Let me just do let me click, hold, and drag. I selected those, and now backspace. And you can see it got rid of all of it. So anything that you have highlighted, if you use backspace or delete, it's going to delete all of it at once. Moving text. Let's say that you wanted to quickly move an entire sentence or word or etc. If you select that sentence, like let's say we wanted to select this paragraph and move it. So I'm going to do click, hold, and drag again to select it. You can kind of see that it's highlighted gray, just barely, you can see it. And let's say that I wanted to put it before dreams right here. So So if I click, hold, and drag on that text, you can see there's this flashing line, this flashing cursor that pops up and moves with me. So I'm going to move it to that D before dreams, let go, and there it is. So I moved the entire paragraph up here to above dreams, okay? That's a trickier thing to do. I wouldn't recommend it for, you know, really big beginners, because a lot of times you can accidentally click off of the text and then it's not highlighted anymore and then you can't move it. So just be careful if you're moving text that way. And then the last thing I'm going to mention is font formatting before you actually start typing. So everything that we've been doing so far is typing the text and then selecting it and making changes. But you could also do the flip side of that, where you are, before you start typing, so I'm going to go right here, I can make changes. So I can make the text red, and I can do size 26, and I can make it underlined and bold, and then I can start typing. See? So if you know what font and what, you know, different formatting choices that you want, right off the bat, make those changes first and then start typing. Otherwise, you can just type everything first and then select the text and make changes. So you can do it kind of either way, basically. Okay. All right, so give me a second to stop the video again. All right, let's talk about before printing. It's good to talk about the page layout and setting that up. So if I go to the layout tab up here at the top left corner, in this page setup group are the main kind of things that we're looking at. So the first thing are the margins. So the margins are this empty space that's along the top, along the left, right, and then along the bottom as well. Okay, and you can kind of see with a ruler where it is because there's this gray empty space. That's how you know that's the margin right there. Okay, the default margin for Microsoft Word is 1 inch around all of the edges. But let's say I wanted it narrow. I usually recommend this for people who are filling, who are doing their resume. And then let's say you have your resume typed and you want to get it onto one page and you only have a sentence or two that's gone over to the second page. Before you start messing around with the size of the font and making it so small that people can't see it and etc., try messing around with the margins. I wouldn't go less than 0.5, half of an inch, but that can really help you. So let me go ahead and click on there and you can see now right there, okay? All right, the next thing we're gonna mess around with is orientation. So portrait is the default when you're in Word, which makes sense. Typically when you're typing a document, usually you want it in portrait. But there are times where you may wanna change it to landscape instead. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on landscape. And you can see now it's spread out, farther along the sides. So you can choose either way, either orientation, portrait or landscape, depending on what suits your needs. The last thing we're going to talk about in this page setup group is the size. So default is letter, which is 8.5 by 11. But let's say that you are printing on legal paper. You want 8.5 by 14. Or you're doing a sign that's 11 by 17, or you're doing an envelope, or etc. So you can do any of these different choices. I would recommend making this change first before you start typing, just so that you have an idea of how things are going to be laid out. So, but let's go ahead and say we're doing legal. So click on legal. There you go. So now you can see the ruler. Now we're out to 14. There we go. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about printing. So now that I made all of my changes to my document, I'm ready to print it. So we're going to go to File and then click on Print over here on the left-hand side. Back in the olden days of Microsoft Office, you had to do Print Preview instead. Print Preview now is just worked in there with Print. So it gives you the preview over here on the right-hand side. I also want to point out to you, a lot of people mistake this copies for the number of pages. Down here, this is how many pages you have. Copies is so that you get multiples of the same thing, okay? So if everything looks good and all of my settings are the way that I want it, all I do is click on this print symbol right here and I'm done, okay? Copies, like I mentioned, let's say I wanted 5 of this exact same thing. I would use the up arrow, click, click, and get until I get to 5. And now I'll have 5 of this as 1 page because it's only 1 page, okay? The printer, if I have multiple printers to choose from, so like if you're printing at home, you probably only have 1 printer, and it's probably HP, 786, whatever, something like that. So you don't have to worry about it that much. However, if you're printing at work, you might have multiple printers to choose from. So just make sure that you choose the correct printer in there in order to print to the correct one. So like, for example, here at the library, we have 4 different printers in our library, but then we can also print to the City Hall side and they have way more printers. So I probably don't want to choose the City Hall printer, otherwise I have to go schlep myself over there in order to find it. So, all right, let's talk about the settings. So on the left-hand side underneath the printer are the settings. So we can print all of the pages, so aka the whole thing like it says right there. So if I had 50 pages, it would print page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to number 50. If I want to print the selection, print selection means that on this previous page right here, if I click, hold, and drag and select some chunk of this and go back and do file print and choose the print selection, there we go. So it would only print the stuff that I have highlighted on that previous screen that you just saw, okay? So it wouldn't print, even though it's showing you the preview of everything, it wouldn't print all of that. It would only print this section that I actually highlighted, okay? Print current page, let's say I have 50 pages and I was looking at page 5 and then I went to file print. If I do print current page, it would print page 5 and that's it. And then custom pages is if you want to do like a range or different specific pages. So if you're doing a range, you have to do a dash. So let's say once again I had 50 pages and I want to do pages 5 through 10. Stop it. There we go. Try again. 5 through 10. There we go. So that means it would print page 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and that's it. Okay. If you're printing things out of sequence, so to speak, you would want to do commas instead. So let's say I wanted to print page 1, page 7, page 9, page 22, etc. Okay. So typically you're not going to do anything that's like super complicated like that. You may do the, range, like I want pages, I don't want the first page, I just want page 2 to 10. Okay. Or otherwise you might just do one single page, like I want to print page 7. Okay. So that's where you kind of mess around with those different pages is in there. Okay. All right. Underneath there we have print one-sided or print double-sided. So if the document that I had was 2 pages, then I could choose print double-sided, but because it's not going to do double-sided. So you need to have 2 or more pages in order to print on both sides of your piece of paper. Collated. Collated is kind of interesting. So the default is collated, but the other option is uncollated. So once again, my example where I have 50 pages. If I print multiple copies, like if I do my 5 copies of it, it would print page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way to 50, and it would start over again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way to 50, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way to 50, until I have 5 complete sets of it, okay? If I do it uncollated on the flip side, it would print page 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So I have 5 pages, or 5 of copies of number 1, and then it would print page 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, so on and so forth. So it's still keeping it in order, but it's not splitting up those copies into kind of their groups, I guess, whatever way you want to say that. So that's why collated is the default, because typically you want all of those pages in order numerically, all grouped together, so then you can staple them or, hole punch them and put in a binder or etc. Okay. All right. The other things down here are basically things that we've already messed with. So we have the landscape or portrait, so you can change it in here as well. You can change the page size in here. You can change the margins in here to whatever you choose. The 1 page per sheet, you can do multiple pages on 1 sheet. So like, let's say you had 2 pieces or 2 pages. In this case, we only have 1, so that's not going to work. But you could do 2 pages per sheet, 4, 6, 8. So it basically shrink this entire thing down so that I can fit multiple pages on one piece of paper. Honestly, I think I've used this maybe once professionally. And one of the times that I tried to do it, it did not really work the way that I wanted it to. So this thing sounds like it would be super useful, but honestly, you're probably not going to use it very much. All right, so the last thing we're going to talk about is how to open a file. So I'm going to close completely out of this. I don't want to save it in this case, but if you did, make sure that you click on save before you close out of it. I'm going to close out of this one. Don't save it. Close out of that one. There we go. Okay, so in order to open the file that I had saved to my flash drive, so the first thing we're going to do is go back to how we opened Microsoft Word in the beginning. So I'm going to go to the Start menu. I'm going to click on my All Apps and go down to the W's until I get to Word and click on Word. All right, so I'm going to pretend that it's not over here in the recent because sometimes it's not going to show up here. So what you want to do is click on this Open Other Documents. And then you want to go to Browse in order to find the folder that it's saved to, okay? So make sure that you go to the correct folder. So in this case, we saved it to our flash drive. And then here's the Dreams poem that we named it. So you got to click on there and then click on Open. And there it is, okay? So that's one way that you can open a file saved to a flash drive or to a computer. You can follow the same exact steps, okay? Okay, so that was the first part of this series, so the Office for Beginners, Microsoft Word. The next video in the series is the Intro to Excel class, okay? So I hope that you learned some new things from this, a couple of little tidbits to take into either your professional or your personal life. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at library@oakcreekwi.org. And have a good rest of the day. Bye.